Okay, so JavaScript library, it's in the advanced topics section. It's really mostly about getting you used to working with callbacks. So basically what it is building your own library. I'm sure everybody knows about jQuery, right? It's basically like a library you just access, does a bunch of stuff for you. There's another cool one that a lot of people love called underscore. And that's what we're going to do here is we're basically going to make our own version of underscore. And it's a library that just does certain, manipulates things and stuff for you. What are we doing here? So for example, in this library we're going to have an each function. This is just one example, one of the functions we'll be doing. And basically what it's doing, it'll take in an array and a callback or a function, and it's going to iterate through that array and then run whatever function you give it on each element of that array. So that way, when you're using this library, you can have this array and just call the .each method, and it'll do whatever you want to each element of that array. The way we're going to create the library is we're basically going to create an object, kind of like what we did yesterday, and it's literally called an underscore, like the underscore key, which is why they call it underscore.js. And what this underscore object is going to contain is just a bunch of different functions that we can call on. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to write out this part since we know we're going to need it. So var underscore, and we're going to create a map function. And because it's an object, don't forget your comma between them. You could copy and paste, but I am an avid hater of copy and pasting because I run into too many errors when I do that. So I'd much rather practice my typing skills. And filter. Oops. And reject. Okay. So now going back to this example, those are the 5 we need to create. And here's an example of how it wants us to run it. So let me zoom in. So we're basically going to create a variable. And in that variable, we're going to call on the underscore object and get the filter function of that object, passing it this array. And then we're defining what do we want to do with this array. In this example, it's saying, okay, I want to filter out just the even numbers. That's all I want. So that's all this function does. It takes in a number, and then it only returns that number if it's an even number. Mod 2 equals 0 means it's an even number. So then we just console log that variable. But with this, it doesn't know what .filter is. We haven't defined that yet. So let's write that. Let's just start with that one because that is one of our functions here. So evens equals underscore .filter array.
You're not on the screen.
Oh, am I not on the screen? Okay. I'll try to move that up. This is like gigantic. I need to make it just a little smaller. Okay. Where is my mouse? There it is. And this is going to be function num. It was return num mod 2 equals 0. I think that was it. Yep, return num mod 2 equals 0. And then we won't know if anything happens unless we console log what it returns. Alright, save. Oh, I didn't create the file name. So this is jslibrary.js. That's what we'll call it. Just go in here. I think it's in demo. Yep, there it is. Startup Nodamon. Okay, so it already run. See, we got an undefined because this evens, we haven't defined what this .filter is yet, so it hasn't returned anything. But what does, well, I already explained what .filter does on some of these. If you not sure what they do, where's the link? somewhere in here. Here it is. There's a link in here for _JS, and you can look up what it does here. So if you go to filter, okay, says looks through each value in the list. Now they call it list here. It's an array, same thing. So it looks through each value, and then it returns an array of all the values that pass a truth, which is what your function says. All right, so we know returning an array. So let's write this out. So is this filter? So this filter is going to take in the array and the function. And what do we want to do? Well, let's first create a new array, because that's where we're going to put the stuff we do want. And we know at the end of it, we're just going to return that. So I'm just going to add return right off the bat. And then in here is the meat of the function. So we're going to basically loop through the array. All right, which you should be pretty good at this by now. So less than array.length, I++. Okay, so for each one, what do we want to do? We want to say this is a truth, so let's say if function array of I, and this is the function, we know the filter is by definition expecting if something is true, so we can just simply say if run this callback on this element, and if it returns true, then we push it into the new array. If it returns false, it does nothing. So we'll say new array dot push array of I. And that should be all you need to do, because if this is false, it won't push it in. So we just want even. So let's save it. There it goes. So we just got our array of even numbers here. And we can change this too. So say if we wanted odd, so I don't want to mess with that. So let's just say does not equal 0. Save that. Still runs it. So in a nutshell, this underscore library, the filter function, takes in this array. This function is a callback, and it's iterating through the array. Each element, it is, you'll see this word also, delegation. It's basically knows that, hey, I need to do something with each element, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, so I'm going to delegate it to this callback. And that's what it's doing. So the callback, the work is being delegated to the callback, which is running, doing what it needs to do. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Okay, filter's done, so let's go to map. Let's see what map does. All right, so map produces a new array of values by mapping each value in it through some sort of transformation. So here in examples, first one, it looks like it just wants to multiply each element of the array by 3. So we can do a common one, see a lot. Let's just say we want to square the values. I'm going to write out what we want to do first. Let me comment this out so we don't need it no more. So we'll say var squares equals, we're calling on the underscore library, the map function, passing it this array, and the callback we're going to pass to it is going to take each number and return, well, here we want squares, so we're just going to return num times num. And then console.log what that returns, which right now should be undefined. Alright, so let's write out this function .map. Alright, so again, we take in an array and the callback. Should be easier if I just call this callback. And just do that. Let's just call that callback. Here, this is actually modifying the array, so we'll just loop through each one. Equals 0. So array.length. Okay, and what we're going to say is array of I, so each element, we're going to make it equal to whatever we want to change it to. So we're going to pass in each element to that callback function. And then just at the end, simply return the array. And hopefully that works. There it goes. Everything's squared, if you can see that. Let me try and get that farther up. There we go. All right, so there's map. Next is reduce. Let's look this up. So reduce, this one's going to be a little interesting because it takes in a little bit extra. So basically it boils down the entire list or array of values into one single value. But we're going to need something called memo. It's the initial state of reduction. So basically as it iterates through this array, it needs to store whatever it's done to the elements up to that point. So memo is short for memoization. And it's just kind of storing the values up to that point, depending what you're doing. So in this case, let's do a simple one and just reduce all the values by adding them. So var sum equals underscore dot reduce, pass in the array and the function. Since we want to add them all, this function equals, oh wait, we need to actually pass in two things into this function. Memo, because that's where we're going to store the sum at each point. And we're going to return memo plus num. Now underscore takes things a little bit farther, so we're kind of doing things more simply. We can actually specify what memo is right away. So you can actually add in a third parameter. So in this case, for sum is pretty much always going to start at 0. So let's just go ahead and pass in 0. And I'll show you a different version of this too. Alright, so here, again we're doing the array, passing array, the callback. And in this case, we're actually going to pass in a third parameter called memo. So now let's iterate through by I equals 0. I is less than array.length, I plus plus. And so here we're changing memo. Now in this case, memo does exist. So this one's pretty simple. We're just going to say memo equals memo plus, actually no, sorry. Callback. This callback takes in memo and number. So memo equals callback memo and array of I. And then at the end we would return memo. Let's see if this works. Oh wait, I forgot to console log my sum. $21. Does that sound right? Yeah, sounds right. 6, 11, 15, 18, 20, 21. Okay. So that's one way of doing it. Now let's say, what if we wanted to do product? Let's just reduce them all down by multiplying them all. Anyone see a problem that we might counter if we leave the memo the way it is? And say, anyone? Yeah. If we pass in a memo in this situation, you're going to get 0 back. So we don't want that. So this third parameter of memo is optional. So in this case, we don't want to pass that in. But now we're going to run into a problem where what if it doesn't exist? And then if it does exist, you don't want to run it twice. So we can actually just add an if statement and just say, if not memo, then let's just set, in this case, for we're getting a product, we can just start it off at the very first element. So let's just say, if not memo, we'll just set it to be the very first element. And now we need to put this second one in an else, because if we don't, it's going to run it and it's going to multiply that first element again, and it's not going to be right. So else okay, save that, and looks like it works. So it returns 720, which I already did the multiplication in my head earlier, and that does equal 720. So it actually should, yeah. So let's just change this back to what we had. Number plus, and it does, returns 21. Say we pass in that, still 21. So there may be situations where you want to start the memo at some other number too, so there could be some other reason you may want to pass that in, but whether you do or don't, it works either way for this situation.
What you just did there, the new statement, is that just making an argument optional?
Yeah, because basically we're saying this memo is, it's optional. Which means, yeah, if it doesn't exist and we try to refer to it, we're going to have an undefined error. Well, not really an error. I think it's just going to say undefined.
Okay.
So,
Would it still run this function? Because you have to
yeah. Now we can just, let's just say we took that out and did not pass in memo. Not a number. Because it's saying memo equals whatever the callback function is, which in this case it's returning memo plus number, but memo doesn't exist. So I don't know if it's trying to add the string memo. I'm not sure. Whatever it's doing, it's not a number. So let's go ahead and comment that back out. Okay. So reduce is now working. Any more questions on that? All right. Next, find. All right, where's find? Find. There it is. All right, find. Looks through each value in the list and returns the first one that passes the truth. So basically it's saying we want to find something, and it's going to give us the first one. This also means that if multiple values are true, it's just going to ignore all of them. Because it says here, if no value, if it can't find the value we're looking for, it'll just simply return undefined. But it does return as soon as it finds the element you're looking for, and then doesn't even look at the rest of the array or list. So we'll just go with, actually let me put it up here. So let's just look for the first even number. So we'll say first even equals underscore dot find. Also passing, we'll change the array. 6. Okay. And the function, again, we want to find the first even number, so return nummod2 equals 0. And let's console.log it. Save that. We should have undefined. All right, so .find takes in the array and the callback. And then what we want to do, iterate it again. All right, and then just simply do an if check. If callback array of I, so if it matches, simply return array of I. And let's see what it does. So it returns 6, that's the first even. What if we wanted to find the first odd number? So just change that to does not equal. As you can see, it just returns the first one it found, which is, in this case, 1. Now, what if it doesn't find a number? So let's just say, let's return number only if it equals 9. And we know we don't have it in there, but we just want to test it. And just like the underscore docs say, if it doesn't find it, just returns undefined. Any questions on that one? Oh, yep, right here. So, yeah, basically you find the callback that you're going to pass in for your find is what you want to equal true for what you're looking for, which is going to be opposite, kind of our next one, which is reject. Okay, so reject returns the values in the list without the elements that passes a truth test. So it's actually exactly like filter, where we filtered out like just the evens or just the odds. And this time we're going to reject. So in this example, if we have this array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, we want to reject. In this case, we want to reject the evens, so we only want the odds. Reject all the even numbers. And it just so the true test is checking, saying if it's even, reject it. So that is what we'll do. So our outcasts underscore dot reject 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pass in a number, and well, we'll just keep the same example. So return, we want to reject the even numbers. Num mod 2 equals 0, and console.log outcasts, and should be undefined. All right, let's write this out, and again, expect an array. Callback, and we are again going to return a new array. So let's just set that up and return it when we're done, and I'll simply loop through. And what do we want to do? So this time we want to say if it passes the truth function of the callback. So we can either do it this way. If callback array of I, this equals to true. Well, we don't want to do anything if it's true because we want to reject it. We only want the stuff that is actually false. So we're just going to change that to say if not callback. So if that returns false, then we don't want to reject it. So we push that value. And let's see what happens. There it is. So we've rejected even numbers. And that's pretty much all of them. Any questions on reject? Want me to try a different type of example case? See what happens if it wants you to reject everything. So if we want to reject all evens, only pass it evens, just returns an empty array. Which is that what it does? Yeah, it actually doesn't say it returns undefined or anything, so we'll just assume it returns an empty array. And that is all of that. So kind of understand callbacks a little better, sort of. Delegation.
Could you go to your find one again, just really quick?
Yeah. Let me,
Okay. I didn't know if you returned, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Stop that you returned right.
Yeah, these definitely, you need to return at some at the end because,
Right.
yeah, you're passing the underscore library, the function, you're passing it some and you want something back. So, yeah, if you don't return something, it'll run, but then you won't get anything to actually view it. So, but this is literally like whoever made the underscore library that tons of people love. This is basically what they did. They sat down on a computer and started typing this stuff out and became a big hit. No idea if they made any money off it or not, because I think it's like, yeah, might be open source. So, all right. With that, I will stop the video.